Springfield homes. So, like, the citizen journalists are going to be like, look, man, this is on this guy's lawn in Vegas or wherever the hell. And it's like, well, is it? Because everybody can do that now. Do you know the videos I've seen of Kamala Harris saying and doing things I know for sure she did not say or do? Yes, those videos are out there about the former president as well. That's why everybody's talking about it. This could be a mess. When we can't get together and agree on what's true anymore, how are you ever going to fix a problem? That's not my statement. I pulled that from a documentary about social media called The Social Dilemma, and I've urged you before, watch it as a couple, then take some notes, and then sit your kids down and watch it with them. I'm telling you. Dude, every single one of those people at the end of that documentary, they're asked, would you let your kids anywhere near social media? They laugh at the suggestion of it. Like, it's insane. They're the ones that invented it. Have your kids hooked on it? They laugh at the idea that their kids would go near it. I'm getting a little sidetracked. But how are we going to know that that video's real? Everybody's screwing around. They say here in this article about this that you may get this information closer to the election. All right. You can see it. Feels like one of those. If you're currently in office, you'd want to get that out as fast as humanly possible for you. This happened on our watch. This way you keep me. Right? Like, I would imagine, that's a speculation. I don't know that I'm right that that's how they would view that, but that seems like common sense, but I am dumb, so maybe I don't know. So there is one of those things. But that's where I'm going to be real curious what happens when the proof really comes out, because nobody believes anything. Is that how now that would be the alien invasion tactic, wouldn't it? Make them believe nothing they see anymore, and then when we land on their street, they won't even believe that. We'll just start blowing everything up with lasers, and then we'll take what we need, and then move on. Right? You know, as I was talking about egotistical, it's egotistical to think that we're the only life form out. Somebody texted this in Ryan, 330-450-7625. It says, Sansbury, I think the egotistical argument around aliens is that thinking that they would want to visit Earth. We're going to be nothing more than a gas station. If that. What would they want with us? Look at us, Sansbury. We don't even want our own family in our house at Thanksgiving. You think aliens want to come here and hang out with us? Like, yeah, there might be a solid argument in that. You're going to rock the bank with me at 9, grab that $1,000 keyword. We're also going to sit down and talk to Scott from waitingfornextyear.com. We're going to do that next here on The Stansbury Show. The Stansbury Show.
That boy is a P-I-G-K.
On Rock 106.9.
Welcome back to The Stansbury Show here on Rock 106.9, online at WRQK.com, rocking the bank. 9 a.m. with that first $1,000 keyword. Every Monday at 8, we talk to my buddy, the co-founder of waitingfornextyear.com, Scott. Scott is now presented by Beavers Marine. BeaversMarineStore.com is how you take advantage of Beavers Marine. Scott, my man, you know, people will ask all the time, first, good morning, and second, people will often say, what do you want first, the good or the bad news? I'm going to start bad news with you. Let's talk Browns first. They're yet to score 20 points in a game, over 20 points in a game this season, getting to just 16 yesterday. I feel like I'm a broken record with you, man.
How's it going?
I'm start with a question I've been asked by my audience this morning quite a bit. Are both Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry employed by the Cleveland Browns at Thanksgiving?
Just driving through the country.
Okay.
I don't. Even if you believe that one of these two men or both of them should lose their job, does firing them before Thanksgiving make this better now? I don't see any situation.
That's a good point.
Either of those guys makes this season better. I mean, if your goal is to make this season more watchable, you know, I don't think that a very.
They lost last night. Are they done?
If your goal is to screen accountability,
I haven't really been following.
There's some changes in the offseason, but I'd be very surprised if either of them are gone in the season, let alone within the next 4 or 5 weeks.
Do you think there will be a change with the play calling, Scott? Do you think we see that get yanked away from Kevin Stefanski at some point?
I think that's more reasonable. I don't know. Again, I don't know if it helps, but I think that if you're
They got
if you're climbing the ladder of realism, I think that that's one step that I think makes a lot more sense. Than
four out of 5 games.
Right. Again,
Is that what it is?
I don't know if I look at yesterday and think the play calling is the problem. I think there's a gigantic talent issue right now. I think the offensive line is in shambles, and I think the quarterback is a disaster. And I think if you outside of that, things are great. I think that
outside of all of that.
But I don't know. Again,
Just taking a trip through the woods on my way to work. Look at these trees; they're on fire.
A better option.
That's a good call.
To block a quarterback who clearly doesn't have it anymore. Just these flash moments where it's like, hey, maybe there's.
Oh, okay, they're up to 7 now, huh?
Right?
Yep.
You did you shoot an
I
8,
didn't realize I were that deep in. Like I said, I haven't been following.
I'm back, baby.
I work too much.
I'm back.
That's exactly where he is right now. And again, maybe it's a play calling thing, maybe it's a scheme thing, maybe they could figure out a way to at least say something to the fans that makes it sound like change is happening. I will say any fan that gets frustrated with the status quo sort of press conferences we've heard from Kevin lately, I get it.
Yeah, I do get that.
You don't want to be a dumpster fire and have the coach make it sound like it's okay. But again, I think there's so much more to fix with this team, and none of it's going to happen before the end of the season.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. And the season's only going to get tougher from here. It's Cincinnati this coming week, then it's Baltimore, and then it's the Chargers. So you got a little bit of a buzzsaw, and we haven't even been able to take care of like the lightweight games where we should have been putting away. Not saying the Eagles was one of those, but you should have probably been able to beat the Raiders, the Commanders, and probably the Giants. Now, OSU loses Saturday night. A lot of people would like to see, Mike Vrabel step into the head coaching position for the Cleveland Browns. A lot of people are headhunting Ryan Day. Do you think Vrabel's going to be the next coach for the Buckeyes, or are Buckeye fans overreacting to that loss Saturday night?
Hogging up.
By 1 point, the top his struggles with Michigan over the last couple of years.
Okay.
I don't think there's anything wrong with losing that game.
Not by 1.
No, yeah, and both teams left points on the board. I think was that last drive. There's a little bit of chicanery there with the 12th man and all that stuff. And he running the clock and not leaving Ohio State with much of an ability to get any plays on. I get that. But again, you're gonna travel to Oregon and lose by them in a barn burner of a game. Does the defensive backfield maybe have to look in the mirror a little bit? Probably. But I don't think you should leave Oregon feeling bad about the way you played.
That's how I say too.
I do think it's a sign of the Big Ten getting a lot better with the recent additions. And
I agree.
I think in conference play is going to be a lot more fun here over the next several years, which is tougher for head coaches, right?
Yes.
Prior, I mean, you had Penn State, you had Michigan, you had maybe one-off team. I think that's a good.
Yeah, I think that will have more to do with it than what happened this last Saturday night. I would agree with that. Scott, I said, let's get the bad news out of the way, and then we'll get into the good news. The good news is we got a baseball team in the ALCS tonight, 7:38 first pitch, and you and I talked a lot about the Guardians playing with house money. So many people said that going into the Tiger series. I disagreed and said, no, I felt like the expectations were a little too low on the Guards going into the season. Are they closer to playing with that house money in this Yank series, or should they be biting down on the rope going, no, we need to win this series and find ourselves in the World Series?
Well, I mean, if anyone told you they wouldn't, if we sit there in April, if they wouldn't be excited about what's taking place right now.
Exactly right.
There's nobody who had this team in the ALCS. There are a lot of teams that have been finishing in the middle of the division. It's emotionally though it's tough to talk about house money, right? I mean, because you get to this next run and you're like, okay, we could beat Rondon. We get Rondon. Cobb goes long. We get to the bullpen. You can talk yourself into a way that they win a game on the road here. That said, I mean, it's you compare salaries, you compare records, you compare talent, you look top to bottom. This Yankees team is going to be very, very tough to beat. I'm glad it's a 7-game series and they're not, as much of a function of, one game the way the first 2 series are. But Dan, I don't know if it's house money necessarily, Dan, but there's nobody who can't be. If you lose to this team in this fashion, I think it's a successful season. And
okay, that's the question I was asking.
I think it more than secures Stephen Vogt as coach of the year, and then it gives, I hate that it kind of gives ownership a way to say at point and say, see, we don't need more money. I do think it's a fun season either way, and I think a lot of people are counting them out, and I think if this team's showing you anything, it's not the kind of output to go play.
I would tell ownership to be like, I'd be real careful with that argument, because likely do you think that's our World Series matchup?
I mean, it's probably the least likely of all of them, right?
Which is why I want it.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be a lot of fun. I mean, you have to assume Yankees Dodgers, right? But I do think if either of these underdogs catch lightning in a bottle, I think that'd be a lot of fun. And it is.
Yeah.
But
they were left.
I would assume the rest of the country is rooting for Cleveland.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Outside of maybe a couple spiteful Twins fans or something where, that we kind of ended their season a little prematurely. I think if you're not rooting for Cleveland to upset the Yankees, if you're a Yankees fan, cool. But if you're not rooting for this team to pull off an upset.
That's exactly what I said all morning.
Yeah.
I said, dude, they're Darth Vader, they're the Empire. You can't root for the Terminator to win. It just feels anti-American, right? Like, it just doesn't feel like the right thing. ALCS Game 1 tonight, my man. Thank you so much for joining us. That's Scott from waitingfornextyear.com. Check the site, waitingfornextyear.com. Find Scott on Twitter at WFNY Scott. Scott now presented by Beavers Marine. It's beaversmarinestore.com. Buddy, have a great week. Let's talk Monday at 8.
You too, buddy. Take care.
Always have a great week. I agree with him. I think most baseball fans are looking around going, all right, I may not be a Guardians fan, but I'm riding with the Guards. Because the Yankees have played spoiler for just about every other franchise out there at some point.
The Stansberry Show.
You have to recognize that one of his greatest strengths is his voice, which makes him sound sexy and smart. Sexy and sexy.
On Rock 106.9.
Rocking the bank with you, 9 a.m., that first $1,000 keyword. So we got the ALCS starting later this evening. Guards Yankees getting underway. And while we were talking to Scott from waitingfornextyear.com about it, we used a phrase quite a bit. And that phrase was playing with house money. And I've talked about this before. Like, sometimes when you're doing this, like, you'll just use phrases that you think everybody understands. Like, once upon a time, I was using the phrase jump the shark. And a young kid, about 17, 18, who listens like, man, I may have missed something. What the hell is jump the shark? And for those of you that don't know, quickly, once upon a time, Happy Days had been killing on the show. Like, it was killing, right? And then all of a sudden, they started to suffer a ratings decline. They tried to do something during Sweeps, which was put Fonzie on water skis, and he jumped over a shark in the water while wearing the leather jacket. It became the phrase people would say, this show is now jumping the shark, reaching for the thing to get your attention back, right? A little bit of that. The house money thing is, somebody asked me, like, yo, man, can you explain, like, what the house money situation is? All right. So it's a gambling expression as far as I know. Okay? And what will happen when people go to a casino is this, right? Somebody will go into a casino, let's say with $100. And they'll say, this is what I'm allotting myself to gamble. What will happen, Scott, is if they should happen to win $100, what a lot of people in a casino do, a lot of people can't do this too, is take their original 100, put it back in their pocket, and will now only wager what they won, the house's money. Now, it's technically yours, you won it, you're in possession of it until you walk out of that building, it ain't yours, right? It's kind of one of those things. So in the terms, or, of like a sports team, what people are saying is, you won. You're in this series. We didn't really think this was going to be here. It was essentially a phrase that means in sports that you can lose this series and it doesn't really matter. Because you weren't supposed to be here anyway, right? This is bonus, essentially. This is extra, it's bonus. And I didn't view the ALDS that way. I felt like a lot of Guardians fans were a little too down on their chances this year because of the Harry Francona thing. I thought there was going to be a drop-off. You lose an all-timer at manager, expecting a drop-off is, well, I think just smart. A lot of people had it crashing into the side of the building bad, and I was like, I just don't think it's going to go that bad. And so sure enough, they found themselves in the ALDS against the Tigers. People felt like that was a little house money. Look, they're outperformed what the expectations is a faster way to say that. Probably just should have started with that. But that's essentially it. Oh, right. One of the things we haven't talked about yet is what you have heard as a third assassination attempt on the former president, Donald Trump. Haven't had a chance to get to this yet. I got to be honest, when I looked into it a little bit yesterday, I was like, I understand why the headline says assassination attempt because it's faster. This, to me, doesn't come close to qualifying as one of those. In Coachella here, a Nevada man with a shotgun, loaded handgun, ammunition, and several fake passports in his vehicle was arrested. This was at a security checkpoint outside of the rally Saturday night. He was released on Saturday on $5,000 bail. A lot of people aren't going to necessarily love that, I would imagine. The suspect, a 49-year-old resident of Las Vegas, was driving an unregistered black SUV with a, quote, homemade license plate that was stopped by deputies and assigned to the rally in Coachella. The driver claimed to be a journalist, but it was unclear if he had any proper credentials at that time. I have seen people stand up and claim him as a filmmaker in Las Vegas. I think a business partner of his, a female, has come forward and said, I work with him. There are disturbing issues here. There's some personality issues here and the like. Deputies noticed the interior of the vehicle was in disarray, and then a search uncovered weapons, ammo, along with multiple passports and a driver's license with different names. The man was arrested on suspicion of possessing a loaded firearm and possession of a high-capacity magazine. Speculate, if you'd like, about the fact that that's what that person was looking to go there and do. Okay, that to me isn't necessarily the same thing as an attempt there. I may be splitting hairs. Maybe. I also see a lot of people making a big deal about this 100,000 number of attendees. I'm a skeptic on 100,000. I'm a skeptic on that. I'm going to bet the under on 100,000. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and we end up finding out, I'll be the first one. You guys know, I'll be the first one to walk right in here and be like, yeah, I got to tell you, man, kind of screwed that one up. He did. It was over 100. I'll be the first one to tell you. Count me down as a skeptic on the 100,000. I don't buy it. I don't see that. But he shouldn't be drawing that kind of crowd at Coachella to begin with. Yet he is. Did you see the ABC Sunday Morning News yesterday, where they're all like head and hands like, yeah, man, like the excitement's gone. She's butchering all this. Picked a non-existent fight with Ron DeSantis. They can't get on the same page with the current president. Like, dude, the news that's behind her is like, yeah, man, this is kind of, I mean, it's a mess. It's a little bit of a mess. It's exactly what I had predicted, and this is not about running around the studio to tell you how right I was. But it is to tell you this. I know there are people who do this for a living. I told you before, and I'm going to tell you again. Meaning, you're not going to get me emotional about it. Which then means you cannot blur my vision about it. I was telling you what I said would be the thing. Like, this is going to be a mess. Like, this is going to be a mess. And it looks like that a little bit. It looks like that a little bit. I don't buy 100,000 people. Do I believe that guy was unhinged enough to try to commit an act of violence against the former president? Sure. I don't necessarily love what happened there being called an assassination attempt. That to me does not fit that description. Now, I'm not a law enforcement official. I don't get to decide that. I get to decide it for how I feel about coverage, about what gets said, and about what this and what moves this. I get to decide how I feel about that. But that's not necessarily the same thing. But here you go again. There's again a little bit more violence, and people are bringing this up. The headlines all weekend were, she takes shot at Trump. He is a threat to democracy. He must be stopped. And people are pointing to this. You know me, I'm not. I will not. Is that rhetoric that's going to help a situation? No. No. Will not help a situation. But in order for the rhetoric to be responsible, what that means is the human being no longer is. And you know I don't love that.
The Stansberry Show.
If your brains were made of dynamite, you couldn't blow your nose.
On Rock 1069.
9 a.m. Rock at the Bank, passing out that first $1,000 keyword. Pretty good way to start Monday out. Not the worst one. Also, take a look at what Roger Goodell wants to do. I don't like it. We'll get to that. We brought up the election a little, right? Because this Coachella madness, 100,000 people. I'll bet be well under on 100,000. You know, there was the transportation afterwards issue. I think that could be a little problematic for them. I don't think people are going to switch their vote because of it. I think they're going to be annoyed by it, but I don't think that's necessarily going to switch a ton of votes. And then there is like the overall story of, you know, Kamala Harris not necessarily being a great campaigner, great candidate and the like. And I had predicted all of this. I wasn't the only one. I had said early on in Joe Biden's presidency, none of this is about him. This is about her. And they want to run her. And just watch, they're going to run her. And sure enough, and it was kind of easy to see. I mean, honestly, the only way you didn't see it is that if you didn't want to see it. As long as you were like, I'm keeping an open mind here. What do we got? Oh, yeah, that's, dude, he's being hunted inside his own party, honey. You can see it from a mile away. And it was easy to see. And we got to talking about that a little bit. And now all of a sudden, dude, you got Barack Obama, the former president, yelling at voters, saying, you guys won't do it because of this. And the voters are going, no, bro, it ain't that. She ain't you, dog. That's the problem. She ain't you. And that kind of is the problem, isn't it? He's still the most powerful politician inside that party, and it isn't close. Is Hillary the second? If she is, it's a distant second. It's Barack and nobody else. Everybody talks about that with the Republicans because it's Trump or nobody else. Guys, it's Barack and nobody else. Right? So he's out there now yelling at everybody. It's kind of a mess. And one of the things that's at the center of this conversation now is SNL. Because Howard had Kamala on and was like, SNL's making fun of you and I don't like it. He got a little lost in that sauce. Right at it. Because she does do a great Kamala Harris, Maya Rudolph. Pretty good. Not as good as that woman on TikTok doing it, but she's pretty good at it. Okay? Those segments, bits, skits, whatever you want to call it. Sketches, not skits, sketches. There's a way to have her doing that and making him look like the dummy, not her. They're making her look like the dummy. I find it also interesting that the audience is now laughing. Remember, like 2 years ago, anybody somewhat conservative, the band would sit up there and scrunch up their face and scrunch up my face and be miserable. Remember when Shane Gillis was there? Oof, baby. Staff members, some of those producers, doing it. Now all of a sudden they're like, now. If only somebody would have had the balls to tell he's going to win. And I kept saying it. Because you wouldn't have asked. Chris wanted to know, Stansbury, you playing that Phil Collins for Baker Mayfield? Anything at NFL City, annoying to me. Because he looked, I'm going to say good enough. I mean, he wasn't great in that playoff game. We got to be honest about this. Although neither was the defense. But, I mean, he's still slinging it all over the place. I believe in my heart of heart that Kevin Stefanski would have tried to keep Joe Flacco.